stranger.
Greetings, travellers, and welcome to episode 105 of the Innsmouth Book Club podcast. As you can see, we've brought you to the Innsmouth Picture House. We've got a cinematic treat for you this week. I'm one of your hosts, Tim Mendes.
And I'm the other one, Rob Poyton. Yes, always nice to get back into the Victorian splendour of Innsmouth Picture Palace. And I think, as Tim said, this is a favourite for both of us, isn't it, this film today?
Oh, it's a classic. It's quite rightly heralded as one of the best horror movies of its generation, and you can see why, can't you? Which is doubly surprising, considering this is the guy's first movie, it's his first feature film. So quite impressive, really, when you think about it.
Yeah. And we'd just like to remind you before we go in to watch the film that tickets are now available for the Innsmouth Literary Festival 2025, being held the 27th of September in Bedford. We've got a great lineup of guests for you, including some new guests. And of course, Innsmouth After Dark is all organised as well now. A great lineup for that, as well as the Friday night quiz, which I'm looking forward to.
Indeed, yeah. I'm currently writing that, and I've come up with some interesting ideas for it. Let's just say,
nice.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the describing the indescribable round.
And I think we decided we will be giving a prize on the Saturday for the winner of the quiz. I think we're not sure what the prize is going to be yet. Perhaps something indescribable.
Something indescribable. Yeah.
All right, I hear Pearl and Scream is about to start, so if you'd like to follow us and take your seats for the main show.
Are you sick and tired of the boring run-of-the-mill holiday routine? Fed up with all that sea and sand? Well, pop down to Innsmouth Travel and we'll book you on one of our exclusive Antarctic tours. Our helicopter pilot McCready will drop you into our private research facility where Dr. Dyer and Professor Lake have a wide range of interesting activities for you and the whole family to enjoy. See the giant penguins. Dissect an elder thing. You could meet Jed the dog. And everyone gets a complimentary bottle of Scotch whisky. Innsmouth Travel's Antarctic tours. You'll come back a changed person.
Innsmouth Travel, 37 Marsh Lane, only 200 yards from this theatre.
There we are then, Deathline, 1972. It's a sort of joint British and American film, really, because the writer, Gary Sherman, was American filmmaker. He actually moved to London after graduating and was here directing commercials for quite a while. And as we said in the intro there, this was his very first feature film.
Yeah, which is really quite impressive because, I mean, some of the direction and the, it's that kind of shooting that you don't really see a lot of now, but I really like it. Lots of them long, lingering shots. I mean, some of the shots of the tunnels and things like that are just stunning. You know, when the camera's pulling back and you've got the lights coming around the brick. It's really atmospheric. And this was like his first feature film. It's quite impressive. I'd like to see some of his commercials to see what he was doing with them, right?
It is, and it's quite unusual in that watching it back again now, I haven't seen it for a few years. I was surprised in a way by how, as you say, you get quite big sections of the film with absolutely no dialogue and just those very long tracking shots.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, as we'll get into, extremely gritty and grimy and realistic and very atmospheric.
Yeah, and that's something that you don't see enough of nowadays, I think. It was like why The Shining was so memorable, was, again, it was all them tracking shots down the hotel corridors and the maze and that opening sequence with the winding round the road and the mist and all that. Yeah. You don't get it anymore, do you? It's all jump cuts and
Well,
Yeah.
this now you'd have a jump scare in the first 2 minutes or whatever, and all that kind of thing, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The BFI described this as the most significant directorial debut of the year. And in the year 2000, this was chosen by a panel of critics as one of the 10 most important British horror films of the 20th century. And I think it has been quite, or was quite influential. That's something, we'll get into a bit later on.
So yeah, it seemed to do quite well as well. Like I say, it's gone on to be a cult classic. Obviously, if you're over the pond, it's called Raw Meat.
Yes. Yeah. Which I never knew until recently because the streaming version that I watched was called Raw Meat.
Yes, same, because it came up on the credits saying Raw Meat. I was like, oh, this is the US version.
And I don't know if there are any, I think there were some cuts made at the time for the UK release, but from what I could see, the US release looked pretty uncut to me. I think there was talk about one particular scene, the shovel in the head, I think might have been cut on initial release, but I'm pretty sure that was restored for DVD.
Well, I'm pretty sure the version I saw of it had the full uncut version because that was grim.
Yeah. Well, I think if you had to sum up this film in one word, it would be grim, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Both in looks and in the sort of feeling it leaves you with after as well.
Oh, yeah. And because it's got that very 1970s feel. And it's, of all you can feel the sort of social unrest in it, can't you?
Yeah.
And it's, it's really good mirror of the time.
Oh, totally, because this is, I grew up in East London, and this is London exactly as I remember it, not just in terms of the settings and the litter and all that stuff, but the attitudes as well, get your hair cut.
Yes.
And all that kind of thing going on. I mean, I was a little bit younger than the students in the film, but there was very much that student agitprop thing going on. They were all Trotskyites and all that kind of stuff. And the forces of law and order were there to protect us and probably take a few bob on the side here and there. And, it's Sweeney territory, really, isn't it?
Yeah. yeah, of course. Of course.
Guillermo del Toro is a big fan of this as well.
Is he really? Right.
I never knew, yeah.
No.
And just to go back to Gary Sherman, who wrote the film. Oh, and the screenplay, by the way, was by Kerry Jones. But yeah, Guillermo del Toro got in touch with Gary Sherman and tried to persuade him to get back to making horror films.
Really? Oh.
I'm not sure. I think this was in the 2000s maybe, or a little while back. But apparently he was not interested, and he said he wasn't really interested in making things about death and gore anymore, which is fair enough. So I'm not exactly sure what you did since.
No, I mean, after this, he did Dead and Buried, which is an underrated movie.
Yeah.
That's a really good movie. And Poltergeist 3,
all right,
which I can't remember which one that is. And then he did the Poltergeist TV series.
Right.
But then after that, he kind of went into other areas, kitchen sinky, drama-y kind of stuff.
Yeah. I suppose we should be grateful in a way that there wasn't a Deathline 2 and 3 and 4.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder if today, if this was remade, because that's a common thing right at the moment. I don't know. I wonder what it would look like now. Because anyone who's been to London recently with the new Elizabeth line and all that kind of stuff,
yes,
I suspect in the true sort of hidden masked horror nature of things that a lot of that stuff is still there beneath the shiny surfaces, if you dig a little bit deeper.
Well, there was one occasion, Linda and I had been up to London to a gig. I think we'd gone up to Camden, and we had to take a sort of circuitous route back to Victoria because there was some problems with one of the line. And we'd gone in this station and we were going round, but we somehow took a wrong turn and we ended up down this sort of side tunnel, and there was just like boxes and things just sort of stacked around, and and a janitor's sort of bucket and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, I don't think we're supposed to be here. And it must have been like a memory of this film, and because there's been quite a few things in the underground, right? And
yes,
like Doctor Who's Web of Fear. I was expecting a Yeti to come popping out of one of the doors, and there was kind of like, let's get back.
yeah. I'll be rounding off with a little personal story. Well, a friend of mine actually, but we'll get onto that later on. But anyone who's been on their own or on the underground at night, that. Well, what was the song line? The distant echo of faraway voices boarding faraway trains. There's one for the Jam fans out there.
Indeed.
It is very atmospheric, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, it was when you get the bad busker, right? There's always a bad busker, and the sort of the effect of the tunnels warps the sound the further away you get. So you hear this really like weird music, like it's like, oh no.
So let's talk about the setting then, because a lot of this was filmed at the old Aldwych station,
Yes,
which when it first opened was Strand.
indeed.
Strand station. I can't help but thinking that Sherlock Holmes would have popped up at Strand station at some point.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if any Holmes fans out there. I wonder if Strand station appears in any of the Sherlock stories. From the 1960s, it was only open on weekdays. It was not a very busy station. So it was closed over weekends. And in fact, in 1994, it closed down altogether. It was used in the war to store and shelter artworks from various galleries and museums. And of course, we've got this whole history around here of museum station, right, and various other stations that were closed but are still there. And occasionally you get a glimpse of them.
Oh yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, they do tours, don't they, around some of them? I'd love to do one of those, like tours around the forgotten stations, and obviously the Churchill's bunker and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You can absolutely go on tours of Aldwych, and it's been used in a huge amount of films. American Werewolf in London, Battle of Britain, Superman, The Craze, Viva Vendetta, 28 Weeks After, and the video for Firestarter was filmed there as well.
Indeed. Oh, damn it! I was going to bring that up because, of course, I was. Oh, it's a banger of a tune. That, yeah, the bits of Keith flailing around in the tunnel. That's all done down there. Yeah.
Ah, I never knew.
Yeah.
I never knew. Wow. So that's the main part, or at least the platform shots. The man's lair, that was shot in Shoreditch at the Bishopgate Goods Marshalling Yard. And there's not much left of that now because that whole area has been gentrified. Let's put it that way, shall we?
I was going to say it's all big shiny offices and apartment lofts and things, isn't it? And
Yeah, and again, I remember back in the day, like railway arches,
yeah.
and in fact, I used to go and see a bloke in a certain railway arch down there. You could get an MOT certificate for £5. You know. It really was that type of place.
It's like all the arches around the back of Manchester Piccadilly. They were like, it was like a sort of unofficial market. You had one guy selling the edibles, let's say, and then there'd be another guy with like some knocked off jewellery and all, you know, out suitcases and all that, you know.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Yeah, it's not stolen; it's just not paid for.
Yes, that's the one.
Then someone would shout "coppers," and
they'd all leg it. Yeah.
I can't help thinking. I mean, London today is a lot cleaner and I think a lot safer, despite all the hype you see.
Oh, it is
A lot more pleasant to walk around Soho and those areas, but I can't help but feeling a little twinge for a bit of the old grime.
I'm the same when I go around Soho, especially. Because I remember when I first went down there, like, you know, it was kind of like the Wild West with boobs.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet your eyes were on stalks, weren't they?
Oh, they were, yeah. Well, me being me, first thing I'm doing is, oh, look, a sex shop.
Which, of course, fits in very nicely with the opening of the film because that was shot in Old Compton Street, I believe, and all around there. So, yeah.
Indeed. But isn't that where they used to have that? Where there used to be like a dirty cinema?
The Windmill.
Was it? That's
Apparently.
the one. Yeah, yeah. Allegedly. Yeah, that was down there, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think the Windmill is still there. I've got a feeling that's still
Is it?
there. Yeah, there's like a little alleyway that leads down to it, and there was always sort of shops on that alleyway.
That's the one.
By the market, you come up. Is it Berwick Street? I think Berwick Street Market. I'm not even sure if that's still there. And yeah. I've got a feeling the Windmill is still there. That was Raymond, wasn't it? Paul Raymond, the Raymond Review Bar.
Yes, Paul Raymond. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I remember like when me and my mate had gone down as teenagers, and he panicked because we went down one of these alleys, and he got propositioned by this sort of 6'6" dominatrix
Nice.
in the sort of the stilettos and all the rest of it, PVC boots, all this kind of thing, and he just went,
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying for a teenage lad, right? Or even not a teenage lad. And yeah, the film sort of centres around Russell Square as well, which I think there's one shot of the platform at Russell Square, which apparently has a wrong sign up.
Yes. Yeah, the sign, they had to black it out because it exits the wrong way or something.
District line or something, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get onto a couple of the other locations throughout the film because this is one of those great ones that you can, you can take a trip down to London and still see most of these, I think. So we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the cast and, well, I think something that blew both our minds.
Oh, the original casting for the cannibal.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
Marlon Brando was the original casting. That's just mind-boggling, isn't it? Apparently, he only didn't do it because his kid got sick or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think his son got pneumonia or something
Yeah.
like that, so he had to go back to the States. 1972. I'm trying to think what Brando would have been doing at that time. The Godfather was around this time, wasn't it, or just after?
Possibly. Yeah.
Must have been just after this, but he seemed such a huge name. I
Yeah.
wonder if he was over in London doing some theatre stuff or something, because he did do theatre things.
Possibly. That's very possibly because there is a theatre that keeps popping up because the two students go to it and stuff. So maybe he was treading the boards, darling. Yes.
Yeah, I can't imagine he was sat there in Hollywood and he got a phone call. But, well, this is the other thing with this film in general. Gary Sherman, it's his first ever feature film. Look at the cast list.
It's amazing. It's a stunning cast.
Yeah, yeah.
Even like some of the bit players went on to be big names, people like Clive Swift, who's only really in like 2 scenes.
Yes.
And he's he's a really recognisable face in British TV, especially.
Yeah. And your Manford, your civil servant at the start, a very familiar face as well. In all sorts of I'm sure
40 Towers.
Oh, of course, 40 Towers. Yes.
The hotel inspectors.
Yeah. Spoons.
Yeah, Spoons, that's the one. Yeah.
And Hugh Armstrong, who plays the man, I love that he's just credited as the man. He was actually from Bedford, just
Was he?
Yeah, close to where I live now. He was mainly a theatrical actor. He did some film and TV. Maybe his most notable role, apart from this, was in 1982's Beastmaster.
Nice.
Which is one of the great corny sword and sorcery films.
Indeed. Yeah. I used to have that on VHS tape.
I've not watched that for a while. I should dig that out again, actually.
Yeah.
That was yeah. And then, of course, we come to another huge name, Christopher Lee.
Yes.
Certainly in the UK, the Prince of Horror, right? Vincent Price in the States and Christopher Lee in the UK.
It's how he's introduced in this, because he's essentially a cameo, isn't it? But you hear him before you see him, and that is just the most Christopher Lee thing ever, isn't it?
Yes.
The fruity tones coming through,
Very distinctive. And I love the way this was written in doing our research. Lee only got the parts because of his friend, and you think, because it's not Christopher Lee gets any part he wants, right? It's not. But what actually happened was Lee only got the part because Paul Maslansky, who was the producer, was a close friend of his, and he said to Lee, "Oh, I'm doing a movie in England with Donald Pleasance," and Lee said, "Oh, where's my part then?" Because he always wanted to work with Donald Pleasance.
Oh,
big fan of Donald Pleasance, apparently. And Maslansky said to him, "Well, but your fee is going to be bigger than the whole budget of the film." And Lee said, "Oh, I'll do it for a tenner." Seeing mates rates.
Nice.
That was it. So I thought that was very interesting. And I think, well, Donald Pleasance is a very underrated actor. He was in a huge amount of films.
Yes.
And the fact that someone like Christopher Lee was so eager to work for him, well, that speaks volumes, I think.
I thought the one thing I was kind of reminded of here, because obviously Donald Pleasance, you think of his more serious roles, like in Halloween, the gravitas he brings to that. You sometimes forget is the man had great comic timing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's so funny in this. His one-liners and his witty retorts and just his looks that he gives to people is like, you dickhead kind of thing. He's really on it with the comic timing.
It's his film, isn't it? I think, doesn't he do a comic part in, was it Monster Club as well with the vampire hunters?
Yes.
So yeah, it's quite comedic in that. I mean, he had 250 roles in a 60-year career, and was in everything from classic war films like The Great Escape, which I'll talk about in a minute, James Bond, horror films. He was in something. Have you ever? We must have talked about this before. 1961. What a carve up!
Oh, what a carve up! Yeah,
have
brilliant.
You seen that?
I have. Yeah, it's great.
I must hunt that down.
It's it's cracking. Yeah,
that's like a sort of, well, it's not really pre-Carry On, but it's sort of Carry On-esque, I imagine, isn't it?
It is very much so. Yeah. Well, that brings me very neatly. Obviously, we'll go back to Pleasance in a minute, but that brings me to his double act. The guy he's doing the double act with in this, his sergeant, is Norman Rossington, who was in the first. Well, he was in the first two Carry On films, Sergeant and Nurse, and then he was in Carry On Regardless as well.
Right. And again, a very familiar face for British TV and film.
Well, yeah, because he did a couple of the Doctor movies as well. He was in like Doctor in Love and stuff like that. And he was in another one similar to What a Carve Up. He was in I Only Asked.
With ARSKED.
That's the one. Yeah.
I seem to remember him from sort of 60s. Was he in like one of the Beatles films at Hard Day's Night or something like that, I think?
Yeah, he's the only actor to be in a Beatles movie and an Elvis Presley movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there you go.
And he plays it really well as well, didn't he? You can see he kind of he's got the measure of Calhoun, the Pleasance character.
Yeah,
and sort of go, oh yeah, he's off again. It was that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it works. There's some tremendously witty dialogue between the two.
Yeah. And of course, Pleasance was in Vampire in Venice.
Yes,
which we were speaking about in our Nosferatu episodes. Yeah. So he did quite a lot of horror films, actually, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, Pleasance did a lot of horror. Yeah.
And I mentioned The Great Escape. This was interesting for me because Pleasance really pleaded to be in that film. He really wanted to be a part of it when they were putting it together because of his personal experience. So in December 1939, he initially refused conscription and he actually registered as a conscientious objector. Quite a brave stand in a lot of ways for that time, I think.
Oh, yeah.
He changed his mind in 1940 when the Blitz started and Hitler bombed our chip shop and all the rest of it that went on there. So he volunteered with the RAF and served as a wireless operator with 166 Squadron in Bomber Command in Lancasters mostly. And he flew almost 60 raids over occupied Europe. So that's quite a war record there.
Yeah.
His plane was shot down near the Pas de Calais on the 31st of August 1944, and he was imprisoned in Stalag Luft 1 near Bath in Western Pomerania, and he was there from October 1944 until the camp was liberated by the Russians on the 1st of May 45. So you can see now that role he played in The Great Escape, he brought a lot of his own experience to that.
Yeah.
The actual character he played was a combination of Flight Lieutenant Desmond Plunkett, the map maker, and Flight Lieutenant Gilbert William Wallen, who was the head of the actual forgery operation at Stalag 3. Pleasance didn't try and escape because following The Great Escape, for those who don't know the story, most of the men who attempted to escape were slaughtered by the Germans, and I think it was 50 out of the 73 of them. And following that, British intelligence said, don't try and escape.
Yeah.
Sit it out kind of thing. And of course, well, we know in the film version, Steve McQueen saves the day, right? But
Yes,
we'll
well,
gloss over that.
yeah, let's just draw a veil over that. Yeah. It's amazing because obviously Christopher Lee and his sort of service record speaks for itself. There was quite a lot of the actors around that time had that military experience, so it's quite interesting.
I wonder if that was part of the draw for Christopher Lee for working with him as well, part of the respect between these two men.
Very possibly. Yeah.
Which is quite funny because in the film they have absolutely zero respect for each other at all, which is it's very catty, isn't it?
Frosty is the word. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Just speaking of actors who served, I think there's Richard Todd. I always remember that when they were filming The Longest Day, and Richard Todd said to the director, those Bren gun carriers, they should be over there. And the director apparently said, well, blah, 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 I'm the director. And, what do you know about it? Todd said, I was here in 1944. I was just over there.
Right.
So, okay, move the Bren gun carriers.
It's like the classic Christopher Lee to Peter Jackson, isn't it? When you slit somebody's throat, it doesn't sound like that.
Yes, that's grim as well.
Yeah. So but the other cast, obviously Clive Swift, there's a Doctor Who link there. He was Joe Bell in Revelation of the Daleks. So just getting that in for people who were playing the bingo card.
Strange Shadows bingo.
Yeah.
It was IBC bingo as well. Yeah.
And I just want to mention James Cossens, who was the minister guy. We mentioned Fawlty Towers, but he was in Horror of Frankenstein, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, and of course, Man with the Golden Gun with Christopher Lee.
Ah, nice. The male lead, David Ladd, was the son of Alan Ladd, the well-known Hollywood actor. He ended up producing Serpent and the Rainbow in 1988, which is a pretty good movie from what I remember.
It was an awesome movie. I think by all accounts, he was a much better behind the camera than he was in front of it.
Yeah.
Because that was the one complaint that a lot of critics had. I mean, I didn't have a problem with his acting in it, to be honest, but a lot of the critics did. They said he was stilted and a bit wooden.
I suppose, but then you're in contrast with Pleasance and Lee and all these other people, aren't you? I would imagine that all of those, let alone their real life experience, they'll experience stage actors as well, aren't they?
Well, even like the underground guard guy, he was in bloody everything.
He was your go-to old man. Go, what's that? What do you want there, mate? It's almost like Spike Milligan, wasn't it? That kind of voice.
He also turned up in a load of British horror movies as the yokel knowledge character. Don't go down there, sort of thing.
And Sharon Gurney, who plays Trisha, also appeared in Women in Love and Crucible of Terror, another not bad horror film.
Yeah.
Oh, and Terence Plummer was in the film as well, who also popped up in Get Carter and The Eagle Was Landed, and I think he was in Batman as well.
Yes, he was. He was the barman, wasn't he? He was the guy in the pub.
Yes. Yeah. So now, as you heard a little bit of there, the next thing to talk about, I think, is the music.
Oh my word! I love that opening track. I do. It's the sleaziest 1972 thing I've ever heard in my life, and it's just perfect with all them shots of the Soho strip joints and the red lights and you got this bong, 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 bong sort of thing going on in the background. It's great.
It's sleaze in music form, isn't it? And I love it. You got sort of squelchy bass synth notes with that sort of Hammond organ cheesy thing over the top. It's perfect. I thought straight away, should we ever get the chance to make a film of Cold Print, then that's the music you want, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I always thought it was Roy Budd who did this, the Get Carter guy.
In
my mind it was Roy Budd, but it's Will Malone, who I'm not really familiar with other than this tune. I'm not sure what else he did, or if he did a lot else.
No. Yeah, I couldn't find out a lot of information about him, to be honest, which is a shame. I'm going to have to try and track down that track. I feel like that's the sort of thing I need to have in my collection.
I've got a feeling there is a soundtrack album to this, because I think I certainly had that track on my playlist somewhere. So I'm not sure where I got it from. I think there is a soundtrack because it does pop up again in quite subtle ways throughout the film.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And I think the music, the soundtrack to this is very good because you don't really notice it, if you know what I mean.
It's not like a lot of them films you had at the time. The soundtrack was far too overblown and stuck out. Like things like Curse of the Crimson Altar, right? The music in that, Jesus Christ.
Yes. So, as we said, the perfect soundtrack for where the film opens on Old Compton Street by the Venus Rooms and various other seedy establishments. He's got the bowler hat and everything, right? This guy.
And the tash, yeah.
Yeah, and the umbrella.
Yeah, but I couldn't help just Monty Python. I just couldn't help getting Monty Python things. There's that I think he's a stockbroker and he ends up on stage at a strip joint at the end of the sketch. And he got the little sock suspenders.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Probably lives in Surbiton or somewhere like that,
Yes, yeah.
It's kind of wandering around a bit. He goes in and out of a few places. There's a lot left unsaid, I think. And he ends up going into Russell Square. And there's a young lady on the station who he propositions, shall we put it that way? Well, basically he says, how much? How much then? And she comes out with the immortal London phrase, piss off.
He starts waving his wallet around, and so she tries to grab it because so in turn he tries to grab her, and she does again the classic knee to the groin. There you go, have it.
Right in the Jacobs.
Yeah, right in the Jacobs crackers. Yeah.
And he goes down, and then we get, I really like this from the start. We get the man point of view, right?
Yes.
Or the monster, or whatever you want to call it. We don't see anything of him yet, but it's always, I suppose it's a bit of a trope now, where you see the victim's reaction. I mean, that goes right back to Phantom of the Opera, right? When he unmasks.
Yeah.
And she sees him, and you see her reaction, and then you see him. Very effective.
Yeah, I was always stuck in my head. I watched it as a kid. The 50s sci-fi horror B-movie, It Came From Outer Space. And a lot of that was done of that POV shot. And they'd obviously put like loads of weird, like Vaseline and stuff around the lens to make it look weird. So when it's like zooming in on somebody, you're seeing through this the eye of this alien. And it's always stuck with me because I found it incredibly creepy because it was obviously they didn't have any budget. So
simple effects, right?
Simple effects. Don't show, just go with thing and then show the aftermath.
Yeah. We then cut to on the tube train itself. I thought it was, there's two things. One, people smoking on the tube. I can't believe. I mean, that happened, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that brought back a memory. You get off the tube and you just stink of cigarette smoke. Let alone, King's Cross fire and all that stuff that happened later. But one thing that struck me with this film is the passengers on the train. It looks late at night. And it looks like they're real people, possibly on their way to work. They're doing the night shift or they're coming home from work. They don't look like extras.
No, but that was quite common because, there's the anecdote about the Doctor Who Silurians. This scene's shot in one of the London stations with Geoffrey Palmer's character has got the plague and he's going through. And there was only a handful of people who knew what was going on. And the station's packed with commuters and they're all sort of reacting like, oh, because he's coming over, he's got all this like pus down his face and all this, and people are going, ah, and it's all like, yeah, that was real reactions because BBC, right, they had no money, no time. It was like, right, we've got 10 minutes to do this, let's just do it and hope for the best.
Oh, yeah, guerrilla filming, like, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So this is where we get introduced to our main characters, Alex and Trisha. Alex is American. I think he's from New York. He talks about New York a few times, doesn't he?
Yeah.
They get off the train at Russell Square and they find our civil servant slumped on the stairs on the way up. Trisha is all for helping him. She gets very involved and emotional about this, doesn't she? This sort of has a real effect on her.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there was some part of her that was foreshadowing or picking up on something in the ether.
Yeah, very possibly. And it's basically, but it's a really good way of setting up the characters because she's instantly pegged as somebody who having a lot of empathy, and he's not, right? He isn't at all. He's the exact opposite. He's just like, because he's just like, oh, sod him. He's just a pisshead. Let's just get out of here.
Yeah. It was in New York, you just step over him kind of thing.
Yeah.
Here's something that's just struck me. We saw Manfred, the civil servant, get attacked, if you will, or whatever was he attacked on the platform? Or did he just see the man stagger to the stairs and had a heart attack or something?
Mm.
Or did the man grab him and drag him there? Why would he drag him to that spot?
Yeah, I think it was more a case of that he just dropped, because from what like she's saying, it's like, oh, first she thought it might be diabetes.
Yeah.
So he's had some kind of apoplexy, you know, he's fainted, just like his face was frozen in terror and he was really clammy. So that would say to me a heart attack.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing that struck me with that as well is that the man has been forced to come out of hiding from his lair. And again, this plays into the pathos of the monster, in inverted commas. Was he just trying to ask for help?
Oh, this is it, isn't it?
You know, it's like you think, oh, there's a monster come out and it's attacked someone. But was he just trying to get help? Because obviously of what's happening to his friend, wife, mother, whoever she is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that kind of, you know, ups that sympathy factor even more, doesn't it, for him?
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause he's a tragic monster, really. I mean, yeah, we were saying before we started, I mean, I had major sort of Quasimodo echoes with this.
Mm.
And those classic, you know, the sympathetic monster,
Yeah.
you know, and Phantom of the Opera again, like you just mentioned a minute ago.
Yeah.
That kind of, he's a tragic character.
Totally. Is in a situation that is nothing of his making and he's just doing his best to, you know, he's got to work with what he's got kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this is where, we get a nice little scene with the lift guy, right? Because, of course, they report this, oh, I can't do that, mate. I've got to wait till, you know, classic British workman, right?
Oh, Jobsworth. Yeah. Proper Jobsworth. What he's brilliant. More of my Jobsworth, Gav.
And they go back to their flat, which is a place called Grafton Mansions, because we see the exterior a bit later on, which is in Bloomsbury. That building is still there. So, yeah, Russell Square, that all fits. They're not far away.
This scene made me laugh because he's sleeping soundly, she's troubled, and she's doing that thing. Are you awake? Are you awake? Linda does it to me all the bloody time.
Are you awake? I fucking am now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we've all been there. But yeah.
I think I heard something downstairs.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have that, would you, necessarily?
No, we do get like moments like that. Oh, I heard something.
All right. Yeah.
It's probably somebody on the street or somebody in one of the other 100 flats or whatever it is.
And this is where we then get our first glimpse of Inspector Calhoun, Mr. Pleasance. And it is moaning from the start, right, about his tea.
Teabags, isn't it? Yeah.
The latest modern newfangled thing, tea bag. Where did tea bags come in? I mean, my nan always used to make a caddy of tea.
Yes.
Like a pot of tea, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So were tea bags sort of 60s, 70s thing or something?
Yeah, I think they were a 60s thing. Yeah. But, poor Matthews, the policewoman.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
He just spends the entire film shouting at her about tea.
Yeah. But I think he's one of those guys who is very abrasive, but he doesn't really mean it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, a lot of it's in jest.
Yeah, it's just his way, kind of.
Well, you get it from her reaction, because she just sort of smiles and rolls her eyes, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's like it's obviously that's their relationship, right? You know.
And I think this was a fairly common thing back then, because we go back to that war history. I mean, what you're talking about, 20 years before or something like that, 25 years before. I think a lot of those men who came back had this sort of attitude. Everything was quite buttoned up and they expressed their humour in quite an abrasive way.
Yeah. Like, I guess it goes hand in hand with the sort of gallows humour that comes with police as well.
Yeah.
You know, police, armed forces, they develop it as a sort of survival mechanism.
Yeah. And can we talk about his darts as well? Because this is something he just produces these darts out of his waistband or something. I'm not sure where he's keeping them. And well, he uses them to get his tea bag out. He's throwing them at the dartboard and appears to miss every time. It's just like a nice little affectation.
Yes, I wonder if that was just Donald Pleasance. That was probably because a lot of these actors then did that kind of thing, didn't they? You've got to have a gimmick, darling. You've got to have a gimmick. You know, they'd have something because it's sleight of hand, isn't it? It distracts from whatever else they're doing. Something else adds a layer.
Yeah, well, Jeremy Brett, right? You think of again that kind of thing.
Perfect.
Very natural, not sort of overblown, but it's just a little thing. I mean, apart from that, he's wiping his nose a lot of the time as well, which one of those dirty old horrible hankies that people used to use.
Oh man, yeah. It actually reminded me of a guy. There was a guy who used to always be around the pubs in Mac, and he'd always have his darts on him wherever he went. And I guess it was a kind of thing that some guys did. The little sort of leather pouch with the set of darts in it.
Yeah.
You know,
almost like emotional support darts.
Yeah.
Probably what you say now, right?
Yeah.
And this is where we get the sort of backstory about missing persons, such as Honofsky and this Manford now. And I love the phrase, it was always some sort of big shit shot.
Yes. That was good.
Very subtle, but just...
Yeah, and it's one of those very telling things, which is a sad truth, especially then, that the other missing people, because one of them's a grocer from Kilburn, and another one's like some other, inconsequential person. They don't really give a flying fuck about it, but they're worried about this guy because he's an OBE and a member of the, cabinet or whatever.
Yes, is an important person. Yeah, which is going to pull in the man from the Ministry in the form of Christopher Lee a little later on.
Indeed.
Yeah. And there's so many great little moments in this where he starts interviewing Alex, and just a little aside. I love the thing about coppers should be like elephants, big feet and long memories. So many lovely little lines in there.
There is. Yeah, and that's where you get the get your hair cut to Alex, because he's a sort of beatnik student type,
This was funny because later on when you see him in the bookshop, and you see the guy who owns the bookshop, and there's that, they were all like the sixth formers at my school at the time,
yes. Yeah.
Afghan coats,
yeah.
carrying Genesis albums under their arms and all that kind of stuff. A definite whiff of patchouli from the sixth form common room.
They did all look like Genesis fans, didn't they? And because obviously the sergeant comes back in after and they're talking. He's like, "Oh, should we tell MI5?" And I just love Calhoun's response: "MI5 my arse."
And I think it's something we'll talk about a bit later. But this idea of Calhoun seems to be stuck between everyone because he doesn't really like the students. He certainly doesn't like the Ministry lot. He doesn't like the posh people. He doesn't like the poor people. He's kind of an in-between figure, really. And I love the way occasionally he puts on the posh, "Oh, hello, could you..." And then at other times he's like, "Anything worth nicking then?" He moves between these two very easily.
Because that's his next bit, right? Because he goes to try and phone the office to find out if he is actually missing, the guy from the Ministry. And he ends up to say, "Oh, you're his secretary, are you? Oh, right. Oh, he's naughty boy, missed a meeting. Oh, rah, 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 rah." Tell him it was Queen Anne. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So the next scene is where we get the background to what happened in effect, why this is happening, right? With Mr. Swift, I believe.
Indeed, Clive Swift. His character's called Richardson, I think.
And yeah, he talks about the 1892 tunnel collapse. So I did some research when I was doing my story for When Shadows Creep, of the digging of the Thames Tunnel. And I mean, once you start looking into all that stuff, it's horrendous. Digging the underground is one thing, and then digging under the Thames is something else as well. Quite incredible conditions that people were put to work in. And this is the story here, basically. 1892, they're digging the tunnels for the underground, and parts of it collapse. Men and women were working down there, which was true. That's what happened. The men would be digging, the women are carrying the earth away in baskets. And the company went bankrupt, couldn't afford to mount any sort of rescue operation. So they just sort of said, oh, well, never mind, and on to the next thing. So these people were left down there, presumed dead, I guess, or presumed who cares, more like it. But there were rumours began of survivors. Yeah.
It's like the classic mole man myth, isn't it? The thing everywhere that has a subway has that myth of, I mean, because that sort of myth goes back to the late Victorian era when they were building a lot of it. There was stories around the time of Jack the Ripper of
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
the savages that live in the tunnels, kind of thing.
And again, that feeds into Gary Sherman's ideas behind making the film, really. But this then brings us nicely into the lair itself. Well, I say nicely, there's nothing nice about it at all, is there?
Yeah, it's beautifully macabre, if you could use such a term.
Very graphic and very realistic, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Decaying corpses, gore, maggots. It's,
Puffy grave worms. Yeah.
puffy grave worms. And it's a long, lingering shot. This shot is a couple of minutes, it feels like, tracking shot. It's like a little sort of tour of his larder.
Yeah, it is a larder, yeah. And there's a rat gnawing on an arm, and it's all very messy. It's but very well done, very well lit, I thought. And random aside, a brief shot of one of the corpses that's hung on the thing was used in Skinny Puppy's music video to Warlock, because the music video is basically loads of clips of horror movies all pieced together.
Right. Ah. It reminded me of horror magazines from back in the day. You had your Monsters of Filmland, was it? The kind of was the big one, and that sort of stuff. I'm not sure when the Hammer House of Horror magazines came out, maybe a little later than that. But there used to be this fold-out one. I wonder if any listeners remember it. So it was sort of like A4 size, but then it folded out into a big poster. And the big poster they were usually really gruesome. It was like a skull or a mouldering body, like a still from one of these films. And it'd have a caption like, "Death can be fatal," or something like that. And as a 12-year-old, you pin these on your bedroom wall.
Yes, yeah.
Is it any wonder?
Yeah, yeah. I miss things like that. Because, I mean, obviously we've still got things like Fangoria and stuff, but I miss the really lurid horror magazines that you used to get. Because I remember that's how I discovered a lot of the like 70s Gallo movies and stuff, because it was all pictures and stills of like skulls cleaved in half and, eyeballs hanging out and all. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see those sort of poster magazines anymore. Do people put posters up these days? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Because that was all, whether it was your football or your music, sometimes you get a poster in NME or something or whatever, or the music magazines and football magazines. Yeah. Certainly remember having loads of Marvel posters, Spider-Man and all that kind of stuff.
Well, concert programs as well, like for bigger gigs, because I've still got one for The Mission on their Carved in Sand tour. And it's an A4 program, but that opens up and the back of it's got all the information about the tour and blurb and all that, but it opens up into a big poster of the band.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
So very atmospheric again, very graphic. And I don't know, one thing that came to me was just, what must that smell like?
Well, funnily enough, I thought that, and then it was nice right at the end, Donald Pleasance says, as they're going into the tunnels, doesn't he? He goes, "Oh, it bloody stinks down here."
Yes, yeah. And it moves out from the larder, and we can see, because one thing I like with this is nothing is explained as such. We've got the setup. There's people been down here since 1892. How do they survive? Well, what do you think they're eating? They're not grabbing Well, I suppose it is a form of takeaway food, isn't it? Hence I thought the American title, Raw Meat, is a bit on the nose for me.
It is a bit, yeah.
I prefer Deathline, I think.
So do I. Yeah.
But we see things like, we see all these lanterns. But then we see there's a couple of big tanks of oil, which, obviously they're digging down there. They would have had a huge amount of oil and lanterns and all that. We've got an old desk, all the stuff that used to be there. And then we get this sobbing sound from the man, and we see him and a dying woman. Is she pregnant, do you think?
Yes, I think so. I think she looks pregnant, and he keeps rubbing her belly, doesn't he? But again, it's not explained. But I think, and I'm pretty sure she basically dies in labour, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. He's not looking good, is he?
No.
You wouldn't expect someone in those sort of circumstances to look good, but I mean, he's got sores and it looks like some sort of wound on his head or something, and it's all. Again, it's very graphic and very grim.
Yeah, we find out why later on as well, and I thought that was a nice little touch. It just adds to the tragedy of it all.
Yeah.
And
we get that sound as well. You can hear distant voices, and you can hear there's like some work going on. They're out there fixing the line or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, like you said, they might be 100 yards away. They could be like a mile away. The sound will just echo around forever down there.
Yeah. The acoustics down there can be really uncanny. You don't notice it in the day when there's people everywhere and they're piping in music and you've got announcements. But late at night, when you're coming back, you've had a few, you're stumbling through the tube to try and get your connection on your own, and you just hear these weird noises just echoing. You don't know where it's coming from, right?
Oh, and can I just say as well, quite unfairly, Ian Anderson.
Ian Anderson.
Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of a prog rock theme.
There is a bit of a prog rock theme, yeah.
It's from one extreme to the other then, isn't it? Because now we're back to Manford's house, which I think one thing we'll talk about at the end as well is this 70s horror, moving away from the Hammer house of luxury. But we're back in that now, because Manford's house could be in a Hammer film. Right.
It does look very similar to the set in The Satanic Rites of Dracula, doesn't it? That manor house with the, Yeah, I love the interaction between Calhoun and the sergeant here. Because he's like, is there anything worth nicking then, Sergeant? And the sergeant, right, he's like, well, that looks like an 1833. If that's an official painting, that should probably grab you about 500 quid.
And he calls him a pompous ponce.
Yes.
Pompous ponce.
Which is brilliant, isn't it? Because the sergeant's quite rough and ready, right? So you don't expect him to come out with this art history.
Yeah, he knows his stuff, yeah. And we find, well... Every good horror film has got one. We find a secret door, right? He makes his spot hidden roll. He sees a false book, moves it, and we get this secret door open to the naughty CCTV room.
Yeah, the rumpy room, innit? Red walls. There's a couple of what look to be like floggers on the walls and stuff like this.
Yeah.
So
and I think it's the bedroom, isn't it, on that little tiny little black and white screen in the corner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's obviously a CCTV set up above the bed because Calhoun goes, home movies, very nice. And that's where Christopher Lee comes in and going, I bet you'd like to watch them, wouldn't you?
So, yeah, a marvellous interplay now between two great actors, I think. And it's know your place, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. What I really like about it is that Christopher Lee doesn't even have to try to be sinister. There's a bit he's standing there and he's basically telling, this isn't your place, this is my jurisdiction. And he just sweeps his umbrella towards the door and just, you can leave now. And it's just like, okay, Mr. Lee, I'm going.
And it's something like take your working class sort of attitude with you or something as well.
Yeah.
And he kind of starts just by being very dismissive, but, by the end he's saying you might become a missing person yourself. There's a direct threat there.
Oh, yeah, he proper warns him off. He's like, yeah, don't, because he's the guy from the MI5, right?
Mm.
So,
yeah.
Which I thought was quite a nice thing, because obviously he was in Man with a Golden Gun. He was Scaramanga.
Yes.
So James Bond,
Yes, yes. And he's got that sort of air about him. I mean, we know he had a military intelligence background anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So he, in a sense, he was in with all that lot. He would have known exactly how they operated.
Oh, yeah. My brain couldn't help going down that route and thinking, Christopher Lee's umbrella. Now, does that have a sword in it? Or is it a gun?
Yes,
You know,
yes.
has he been the
Yeah,
Q branch?
now you mention it, yeah, he looked like he could wield that, couldn't he?
Well, that's the way
Yeah,
he sweeps it. You use it like a rapier.
yeah. So yeah, even though it's just like you say, really just a cameo appearance, it adds a huge amount to the film, I think. And then we're back to the real world. We're back to the train where Alex and Trish are going back to the flat. I noticed they had a nice Hendrix poster up there. I spotted that one.
Yes.
She's still very upset about this. She's not letting it lie, is she?
No, no. It's obviously made an impression, and he's being more of a dismissive prick with every mountain moment, which isn't ending well.
Mm.
Because she basically says, "Right, that's it, I'm off." Right? She packs a suitcase, and that element of reality in it. Because how often in films they just stuff everything in a suitcase and just go? That doesn't happen in real life. It's like, where the fuck did I put my hairbrush?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just shampoo in this case, isn't it? It's like, where's that shampoo I bought? Where did you put my shampoo?
Quite a small little case as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, even that case was very 70s. I remember those, you know.
Oh, with the little flippy clip things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where we get this sort of back and forwards now between the bookshop, the sergeant going to the bookshop to pull in Alex again, ask for the Kama Sutra.
Yes.
And this is sort of interspersed with the lab, right, where we start getting the medical reports and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I thought this was nice because, again, if we think of like your typical Call of Cthulhu investigation type thing, you know, you got one group, one part of the party is off to the lab, another part has gone to talk to the witnesses. You know, it very much has that investigator feel about it.
Yeah. Because it's now just before we get to all the lab stuff that we get the big brutal scene. Because you get these three. Because we've just cut back briefly to the man, and the woman is now dead, and so he goes into fits and he grabs a shovel and goes off into the tunnels. And there's these three poor sods just down there. Oh, yeah, I'll just go and change that fuse. It wanders off. Yeah. The light flickers.
Yeah.
And then when it comes back on, he comes around the corner, he's got a shovel sticking out of his head. It surprises you. It's not a jump scare, but it's shocking. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, fucking hell.
Yeah, because up to now, it's not been violent, has it? It's been very unpleasant, but there's been no actual violence. So the first bit of violence you get is, wow, bang.
Yeah.
Split skull, full on.
It's impactful.
And the fight that follows is very brutal. It's not a sort of fisticuffs thing. It's not roll your sleeves up and get stuck in. It is very brutal. That's something that's echoed later on when Alex gets hold of the guy. He stamps on his head.
Yes, whacks him with the mag light and all. You know, he's walloping him with the mag light things.
Yeah. I'm not saying that he should or shouldn't have done it, but it's not Marquis of Queensberry stuff, is it? You know, it's street fighting.
No, it's much more real. Yeah, it's much more like a punch-up in the tube would be, you know.
So, yes, and we get the guy stabbed with the broom as well.
Yes.
That's what leads us into the lab, because that's one thing then your coroner, or I guess he is saying, so whoever did this was really, really strong, because you can't just shove a broom through someone normally.
Although he picks it up and just show Donald Pleasance, and there's still all the gore hanging off the end.
The liver on it.
There's bits of meat hanging off it. It's like, oh.
Something Lara noticed as well, all the evidence of this, none of it is bagged or anything like that. They're just handing this stuff up.
Yeah, exactly. So, here, I'll look at this.
This is where we find about because obviously they've got blood samples now because the man was hit and whatever. We find he's suffering from, well, anemia and a lack of vitamins, which is no surprise, but worse.
Yeah, because the first says it, oh, he's got different blood. Yeah, it turns out he's got the plague, a septicemic plague, which is brought in by rats, and he'd obviously been bitten by one of these little buggers. And, yeah, not nice at all.
Which explains those kind of sores on his head. They've got a bit of a bubo look about them, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, you can see that. By the way, I thought the makeup was very good for that, because they could have done it over the top, but it looks like he's got filthy hair. I imagine him being infested with lice and stuff, and just, you know.
Yeah, you can almost smell the body odor coming through the screen, can't you? It's a bit grim. Yeah.
I also like Calhoun had a little thing here about Ironside.
Yes.
And he was it when he picked up Inspector Ironside. And funny enough, I was watching a review of this, and the guy was waxing lyrical about Pleasance's performance, and he made a interesting comment. He said, "Why didn't Calhoun? How come he didn't get his own TV series? You know, this would have been a great." He said he would have been the UK's Columbo. I
Yes.
thought that was spot on, wasn't it? Absolutely spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, he did have that sort of Columbo vibe, didn't he?
Yeah.
Especially like the bit in Just a Moment where he's like, "Come on then, Sergeant, let's get pissed." It's not like we're off duty now, because they made a point when they're at the house of him having a brandy and offering it to the sergeant, and the sergeant saying, "No, I'm not when I'm on duty."
Yeah.
So I thought that was a nice callback, but it is that the Columbo type thing, isn't it? Because Columbo's always on the sauce. You know?
The word I wrote down was laconic.
Laconic, spot on. Yeah.
And also he's the grubby little guy, but he's, you know, wiping his nose and all that, but he's the sharpest bloke in the room.
Mm.
So very Columbo. And of course, we forgot to mention, how could we forget to mention, he did play a detective, didn't he, in something else?
Oh, of course he bloody did.
Played Mr. Carnacki.
Of course he did in Horse of the Invisible. Of course he bloody did. How do we forget
Oh
that?
no, it just come to me again, that. Yeah.
Yeah, shit.
Straight away, when we get into this territory, we're on D notice, right? Cover up time, a civil servant, septicemic plague, cannibals in the underground. What do we need to do? Put a lid on it.
Yeah, yeah. Bury it in red tape and hope it goes away.
Yeah, so the coppers are down at the pub getting pissed, and a nice little scene with they threaten him. They threaten to arrest him if he doesn't serve them after hours. I find it hard to imagine, having experienced a few myself, that there was a pub in London that didn't do lock-ins, but you know.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah.
My heart always goes back to the Buccaneer in West India Dock Road, which not only had lock-ins, you could buy bags of whiz over the bar. Not even under the bar, over the bar.
That was like the George Hotel in Mac. Yeah, because they had a little bar underneath it, a little pub underneath the hotel proper. But because it had the hotel above it, they could bullshit the licensing. They just never shut. So you just rock up. Yeah, there was a guy with dreadlocks who hung out in the little back garden bit. So you know what you could, big green cloud over his head. You know.
Again, that's part of that thing, isn't it? That sleaze of the time, which unpleasant and dangerous, and we're not condoning the use of drugs, kids, or alcohol.
What was that Grange Hill thing? Just say no.
But it's part of the fabric of our background, shall we say?
Indeed, yeah.
Oh, then we get to that theatre you mentioned. We see the pair of them coming out of the theatre. That's actually the side entrance to Battersea Arts Centre.
Yes,
which I believe is still there. I think it was damaged by fire at one time, maybe in the 90s.
Oh, right.
But I think it's still there now. And from what I've seen, I'm not sure how recent the photos were. It looks pretty much the same.
Yeah, well, that whole area is massively gentrified. It's all art galleries, and it's sort of bohemian quarter now, isn't it? Which kind of fits in with how it is in this, right?
I suppose, yeah, really.
Because there was something I picked up on here was like, again, it was a very good snapshot of the time, because it's following them down the street, and they're looking in the window of this chippy, and there's the guy with the long hair, the greaser,
Yeah.
So they're puffing on a ciggy in the chip shop, with a bottle of beer, and it was just like, yeah, there we go.
Well, that whole thing again, when later on he's looking for Trisha, again, it just looks like normal people.
Yeah.
Coming home after a night out or whatever, he goes in the little corner shop and all that stuff, doesn't it? And of course, they're into the station and they're getting on the train. Did you notice the train was going to Cockfosters?
I did. I giggled.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I didn't manage to get a picture of the front of the train this time, because I usually do. That's one of my things when I'm in the tube. Cockfosters. Because I'm a child, basically.
Why not? And why not? And this is where the pair get separated, because they get off the train. Oh, shit, Alex has left his books on there. He jumps back on to get his books. Doors shut. Trish is left on her own. She's not left on her own for very long, though.
No.
Seems like seconds.
It is. Yeah. yeah, she's grabbed and taken to the lair.
So Alex, obviously, he gets off, he rushes back home. She's not there. He has his little search around the chip shop and the off license and all that kind of stuff. Ends up going back to Russell Square, and the shutters are down, like the metal grill is pulled across. And we get another lovely London copper type. Now then, lad, what's going on here then? What's happening here then? Now, come on, calm down, son, calm down.
A proper Bobby, isn't he? He nearly said, I was expecting a hello. They'd go Dixon and Doc Green vibes, right? What's all this then?
Evening all.
Yeah, evening all. Yeah.
Trisha wakes up, and not the best place to wake up, is it, really? I mean, she's in the larder.
Yeah, you're face to face with a cadaver, basically. And there's some walking great rats.
Yes. And this is where the man shows his protective side, would you say?
Yeah, because she screams at the rats, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So he does the decent thing and stamps on them and bites their heads like any gentleman would.
Yeah, it's the way he scoops that one up and just bites its head off. Like Ozzy Osbourne vibes, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, no wonder he's got the bloody plague.
Yeah, I know. He's been biting the rat. Because they said, he's probably been bitten by the rats. No. He'd bitten the rat.
Man bites rat.
Yes, indeed.
The other name I've got written down here, again with sincere apologies, is Bill Bailey.
Oh, yeah. I can see that. Definitely. Yeah.
Unfortunately, he doesn't whip out a synth and do a sort of dub version of the theme from Blackadder or something, you know.
Yes. Oh, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And again, this is where we see the two sides of the man, because Trisha flees, she runs away. So we get, again, those lovely shots of the tunnels and those echoing noises and the dripping. We haven't mentioned the dripping.
Yes.
That's there. That's right up in the soundtrack, isn't it, all the way through?
Yeah.
And I think for me, in some ways, well, it turns very horrible, but almost the most moving part of the performance is obviously trying to speak to her, but as we know, all he can say is mind the doors.
Yeah.
He's trying to convey something to her. She's obviously terrified out of her wits and frozen in fear almost. And so, she responds by hitting him in the head a couple of times, you know.
And doing a runner. And then this scene, because... Yeah, for some reason, I did think of The Shining. You know, the bit at the end when Jack Nicholson's chasing Danny through the maze. And he's, come out. You know, I'll huff and I'll puff and all this kind of stuff, right? But this is very similar, because all the way he's tracking her through these tunnels, he's saying mind the doors, but he says it in like 100 different ways.
Yes.
There's a different inflection every time he says it, and it's beautifully creepy, because it's, again, that distortion effect of the tunnels. It's the shots when it's from her point of view, and you can just hear him in the background. Why the doors? You know?
It's like one time it's a question, then it's a sort of order, and then it's pleading, and then it's angry. Yeah, it is an incredible performance, really, I think.
Yeah, considering he has one line of dialogue, he does the best you could possibly think with it, you know. I can't help thinking Marlon Brando, how he would have done.
I'm finding it hard to picture, to be honest.
So am I.
But then, see, I grew up with Brando, really, probably the first thing was The Godfather.
Yeah.
Then Apocalypse Now.
Right.
So for me, those are my two Brandos, if you like.
Last Tango in Paris.
Yeah, well, again, that must have been around this time. That must have been early 70s.
It was. Yeah, it was.
Which I've never seen.
Have you not?
No.
All right. So if I say grab the butter, you won't know.
Well, I know about that because obviously, you know, my filth radar picked that up. But yeah, I mean, I never saw is it the Wild One? Was it on the waterfront? The old black and white stuff. Rebel Without it was James Dean, wasn't it? Rebel.
That was James Dean. Rebel Without a Cause. Yeah.
So I suppose I wasn't quite of that generation where he was that sort of figure. And obviously in Apocalypse Now, you barely see him anyway. He's more of a presence, isn't he, in that?
Yeah.
The horror. Perhaps that's what he would have been saying in this.
Yeah.
I can't picture it.
I can't. It's very strange. Yeah.
Two slightly humorous things to alleviate the grimness. I just wonder if the actor ever pointed me. What's my line again, love?
He should have for a laugh, shouldn't he?
Prompt, love,
Yeah.
prompt.
What's my motivation?
And the other thing is, I seem to have been on to singers with this guy. We've had Ian Anderson and Bill Bailey. Great Rock and Roll Swindle.
Oh, yeah.
Eddie Temple Tudor, Who Killed Bambi?
Who killed Bambi?
Who killed Bambi?
Yeah. That's a cracking tune.
That is great. That's a great scene. It's the best scene in that film, I think. But,
well, yeah, most of that film was utter crap.
Very strange, very strange. And I think that bit was shot at the Raymond Review Bar, I think, the Windmill.
I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So there we go. It's all connected.
There you go. It's all connected.
So Alex has managed to get in to the station, right? And he's found the little entrance to the lair, which I think in the film they have that's museum station, isn't it?
It is museum station, yeah.
And we get a bit of running around and shouting and all that time. This is where the man has turned nasty, and we get. I always find this a bit disappointing, but I think it seems to be an early 70s film thing, the rape scene or attempted rape.
Yeah, the attempted. Yeah, and I couldn't help saying to myself, "Oh look, the typical gratuitous boob shot."
Yeah.
There had to be in any sort of X film of the time. There had to be a knocker shot, didn't there?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that's the only point of the film that I thought, did they have to do that? I mean, is it in keeping with the character and what happened? Maybe. I guess people can sort of argue about that.
Yeah, well, you got to remember as well, because when they were talking about him, the doctor in the lab said potentially rabies. And he is drooling and frothing, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of implied that he's rabid at this point.
All right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just that sleaziness of the cinema of the time.
Yeah.
You know, right, we're in the final reel. Get your baps out, love. You know.
Yeah, it's very much, and like I think films like Straw Dogs and that kind of stuff, which is very unpleasant. All your Death Wish films and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Seem to lean into this trope a lot.
Yeah.
Without any real, supposed titillation, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah. It's sort of crossovers with the sexploitation genre, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Anyway, Alex arrives. There's another trope. The White Knight arrives, right? There we go.
Yeah.
Fight. That's where we get the head stamp and all the rest of it. And totally on cue, just as the fight is finished, the old Bill turn up.
That's just how it goes. That is, in my experience, that is always how it goes.
What's happened here then?
There's
someone lying bleeding on the floor and broken glass everywhere.
yeah, exactly. A bit of a rook. Yeah. I thought it was quite interesting because it goes back to her empathy thing. Because just after the head stamp, he goes down, the man, and then he starts stirring again. And Alex goes to give the coup de grace, right? He's going to bash his brains in with this mag light. And she's like, no, leave him.
Yeah.
Because she obviously gets the sort of tragedy in it, I guess. She's obviously one of these people who's quite sensitive to this kind of thing, right? I mean, that's how I've took it anyway.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. He kind of staggers back to, I suppose, where he feels safe, where he feels comfortable, back to his family, really.
Yes.
One thing earlier, he takes a fob watch off of one of those guys.
Yes.
So there was an interesting shot there where we see these, they look like shelves or something, maybe they're put on.
Yeah.
But there's rows and rows of bodies, presumably the people who were down there. And each one of them has got a little bit of jewellery because he puts the watch on the lady who died.
Yeah.
So that sort of, because they said, they must have survived by eating each other. But none of those bodies look eaten, did they, particularly?
No. That's obviously the family mausoleum, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're all laid out like a crypt.
Yeah, totally that. I couldn't help thinking, in Smithian terms, charnel house, right?
Yeah, charnel house, yeah.
But each of them had obviously something he'd found, something bright and shiny, just laid on them. I wonder where that came from in his mind. Because obviously he was born down here because, you're talking about, 80 years or something?
Yeah.
I was probably, what, third generation or something like that, I guess.
It's obviously a tradition, isn't it? It's obviously when, like, the first matriarch passed, the guy would give them the thing, and then the son would have seen, and yada yada yada. I mean, yeah, because I mean, it's all these sort of death and burial traditions that get handed down. Because some of them are quite strange. Like some, like families have these strange, quirky little traditions that, oh, when he's buried, he's got to be buried with 6 tulips. You know, it is like that, isn't it? Some of these things.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just that, but this sort of warped take on it.
Yeah. Funnily enough, we were talking about this the other day. I think it's a sort of conversation that cropped up in our house. You're probably very much the same. What if and when? Because, well, we've had some deaths going on lately and all that sort of thing. But I said I want to be in a crypt, sat at an organ.
Nice.
And every now and again, passers by will hear ghostly organ tones.
Mad Jack Fuller in Sussex over there. I went to his tomb. It's a pyramid.
Oh.
He's had a pyramid outside a church. And apparently the legend is that he's in there seated in a chair with a chalice and a bottle of red wine next to him.
Marvellous. That's
Yeah.
style, isn't it? That is style.
Isn't it? Yeah. And yes, we have had that conversation. I want to be an egg timer. Put me ashes in an egg timer, then I can still be useful in the kitchen, right?
Oh, nice. Oh, just not like the sort of sands of time running out. Like death has a time of just an egg timer.
Just an egg timer, so I could, so I could be of some use.
I was to say you being useful in the kitchen, but then that was your job, wasn't it? Being useful in the kitchen. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. So, and I think there's one of the best shots in the film here, where obviously the cops come down, and you two stay with the youngsters, as he calls them. They don't look particularly young, do they? Well, Alex doesn't, but
No.
You stay with them. We'll go and have a look, and you get these lanterns disappearing off, and that dripping sound, and just their voices getting quieter and quieter, and then sort of disappear in the gloom at the end. That was beautiful shot.
Yeah.
And we get the classic expression when they find the lair. Good Lord.
Yeah. One of the incidental coppers who's standing around looking very green around the gills. I thought that was a nice little bit of acting by the extra, because he's sort of standing around like gagging, like you would, right? You'd be like, fucking hell.
Oh, rim job. Yeah, that's why Vicks.
Yes.
New coppers are always told to carry Vicks around, right?
Yeah, under the nostrils. Yeah.
So the man is there and he expires. They find Manford. And Calhoun kind of grins and he goes, "Oh, let MI5 know." He seems quite cheerful about that.
Yeah.
And they say to that bloke, one copper, "You wait here. We'll go and get the team in."
Yeah. And it's the copper who's like struggling.
They've not checked to see if there's any more of these people or anything, do they?
No.
You wait there, Jenkins. And they come walking back up and leave, and we're just left with that view of the tunnels again and the drip, drip, drip. And then, of course, we get the
classic.
We get the Now, was that just like the ghostly echo of him, do you think? Has he come back to, like, was he not dead? And that poor copper's just had his face chewed off. I mean,
That's kind of what I thought. That's kind of how I took it. But yeah, I mean, it could be taken any way, because it's really well done the way it echoes down the tunnel, doesn't it? Mind the doors.
So yes, there we go. Again, this is great weird fiction territory because it leaves questions to be asked.
Yeah.
Not much is explained throughout. We get the reason why he's there and possibly what's wrong with him. But we have to fill in a lot of the blanks. How do they live down there? How many of them was there?
Yeah.
How comes no one saw them, or did no one investigate? All that sort of stuff. But knowing the London Underground and then knowing how the establishment works, you can see that if something happened, just shut that door and lock it, and someone will find out about that in 50 years' time, sort of thing.
Yeah, it happened a lot, didn't it? I mean, 'Cause even like when they're building the railways, like railway tunnel collapses and things like that, and just like bodies, what bodies? Just sweep them under the rubble and carry on, right?
And I mean, Brunel, when he was digging the tunnel under the Thames, had a similar thing. They had a really bad collapse at one point. I think it was halted for 2 or 3 years because they couldn't then get funding again. But they were using an amazing contraption for that. That he got the idea from the woodworm in ships. I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but it's basically like a hard-headed worm. It bores in and it takes the wood out behind itself. So they invented this huge contraption that sort of drilled in, and it had like platforms on it. The diggers would take the earth and pass it back. So it was almost like a huge drill going under, it's 100 foot under the bloody river. I mean,
bloody hell.
And of course, occasionally there'd be leaks. You can imagine the gases because they hit pockets of vegetation.
Yeah.
I mean, the conditions must have just been nightmarish.
Yeah.
So I think there's quite a lot to take from this film. We mentioned the influence. I did see somewhere someone reckoned that this is what influenced Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If that is true, I can see it because one of the things that this touches on, and again, this brings us back to Mr. Lovecraft, is the idea of degeneration.
Yes. Yeah. I got major Arthur Machen vibes. These survivals, because that's what the little people in Macken's stories are. They're a survival of a forgotten race that live in the tunnels in the hills, completely subterranean, out in Wales. And John Buchan did the same thing with his really good novella No Man's Land up in the Scottish Highlands. It's basically the same kind of setup.
Right.
But also, I couldn't help thinking of H.G. Wells and the Morlocks.
Oh, of course. Yes. Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, Robert E. Howard obviously borrowed that for Worms of the Earth as well,
Indeed.
right? He was just riffing on Machen very much there.
Yeah.
And Lovecraft, well, Lurking Fear is the obvious.
Yeah, the Martens clan.
Yeah. I mean, and Lovecraft's full of that isolation brings degeneration, isn't it?
Indeed.
In all sorts of ways. So you've got that aspect. Then you've got the cannibals or CHUDs.
Indeed.
And I thought that the earliest thing I could think of this was Sawney Bean.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that's of Sawney Bean. Yep. Yeah.
This was a clan in Scotland. I don't know how much of this is true because it was printed in the Newgate calendar, which was a bit of a penny dreadful of its day.
Mm-hmm.
Described as a sensationalised crime catalogue loosely connected with Newgate Prison in London. Did I tell you one of my ancestors got married in Newgate Prison?
Really?
Yeah, no. Lara's been doing a lot of research. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, he was in there for debt, apparently, so nothing changes, does it?
Yeah, what's usually debtor's prison, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, Sawney Bean was this clan in Scotland in the 16th century, and according to the Newgate calendar, they murdered and cannibalised over 1,000 people across 25 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty good going, isn't it?
Yeah. They used to waylay travellers because it was on the road, sort of in the lowlands, wasn't it? They used to waylay travellers going into Scotland.
Right.
You had a similar thing in America with the Bloody Benders, which the name is hilarious. But they had a guest house, and they ate people who stayed there and stuff.
Oh, wow! I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah.
Was that one of those like a sort of Sweeney Todd sort of setup? Was
Kinda, yeah.
Hit the lever and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which cropped up again. What film did we watch recently with the blind guy? Post-apocalypse. The Book of...
Oh, the Book of Mormon. Oh, no, Book of Eli.
Yeah. Denzel Washington. Yeah. The Book of Eli. Yeah. There's a scene in that starring Miss Jones from Rising Damp, funnily enough.
Indeed.
Of a couple who welcome them in and they're cannibals, right?
Yeah. Because they get the tremors. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's a common sort of horror trope. The cannibal film thing, I suppose. I don't know if it's the start of it, but the one everyone remembers is Cannibal Holocaust.
Of course,
1980, which was a video nasty at the time, I think.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and Cannibal Ferox around at the same time, which was a very similar film. There was a whole boom of cannibal movies, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And But then later, I mean, I kind of reminded me of Hills of Eyes as well, and things like that.
Oh yes, yeah. And 1984 brought us Chud,
Chud. Oh yes,
cannibalistic human underground dwellers.
indeed.
So I mean, that is exactly what it says on the tin, isn't it? Really, that one.
Yeah, there was another film. I think it was French. I've got it somewhere called End of the Line, which was basically this. It was in the underground, but they were more actual ghouls. That was basically ghouls in the underground.
Well, ghouls in the underground, of course. We're back to like Pickman's model.
Pickman's model, yeah.
And another underground cannibalistic that I thought it's such a horrible film. I've never watched it again. I mean, horrible in a good way. The Descent, 2005.
Oh, I love that film. Yeah,
That ending is woof. That's
yeah.
that's bleak.
That's a great movie. That is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's yeah, it's definitely got a sort of Ligotti-esque atmosphere to it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of those you come out and have an existential crisis.
I still remember that. You know, today that ending was. We won't say anything in case you haven't seen it, but wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Train horror, Horror Express,
Yes.
Midnight Meat Train,
Yeah.
Train to Busan, Creep. There's quite a few of those type of films.
There is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this aspect of the man is a monster, yet you feel equally repelled by him and sorry for him. Well, like you said, I never thought of Quasimodo, but yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it rings a bell. Yeah,
Oh.
that's my first one, first and only.
Oh, well, it does have that sort of Esmeralda vibe to it, doesn't it? You know,
Yeah. In sword and sorcery terms, I always come back to Tower of the Elephant as well, Robert E. Howard, the Conan story.
Oh yeah,
with the elephant creature god that is actually a victim of pity because he's been tortured and all the rest of it. Very not what you'd expect from a Conan sword and sorcery story, but well, people who don't know the genre might not expect it. But again, it reveals, well, we always say this with the Pulp Fiction, it's got a lot more layers than people give it credit for.
oh yeah, yeah.
And yes, 70s horror we touched on as well. This move away from the gothic and the purpureal into the grit and grime. We're sort of going from Poe to Michael Shea, aren't we, in a way?
Very much, yeah. Because I mean, a lot of those 70s lower budget British movies, and then again, like I mentioned earlier, the Italian films of around that time, they very much eschewed the plush carpets and golden curtains and went for a squat with, you know, somebody's skin hanging off. It was all very nasty, which I guess was a sign of the times because there was a lot of social upheaval, right?
Well, this is Gary Sherman's whole thing. There's an extract from an interview with him. He said, "I'm very political, but no one took political scripts seriously. Then someone said to me, write a horror and you'll get a film. The whole idea of Deathline was to highlight class distinctions as much as make a scary movie. That's why it's so grim and horrible. It highlights the plight of the underclass." So obviously this comes across a lot in the film because the diggers were just left. No one cares. Yeah. No one even cares to look into it after. It's just, oh, well, that happened.
Yeah.
We've got, as I mentioned, those normal people go on the train to and from work or wherever they're going with their bags of shopping or whatever they've got, you know. And then this idea of Calhoun, he seems to be working class, but he's moved up a bit, is an inspector, right? He's doing well in the plot, but he seems caught between these two worlds and he doesn't really like either of them.
Yeah.
He kind of takes the piss out of both as well, I think.
Yes, very much so. He definitely takes the piss out of the upper class a lot.
Yeah. And then your important guy is a perv, dirty old man, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like you said, things only kick into gear when he goes missing.
Yes. And obviously then you've got the man from the ministry coming in to sweep it all under the carpet. You know, there's a lot of social commentary in it. A lot.
Yeah. And I think it is of the time to some extent, particularly the student bit and all that sort of stuff. You know, students then were, you know, marching for whatever. There was the stuff going on in Paris. I guess that was a few years before.
Yes.
International Times, all that sort of stuff going on.
Well, doesn't Calhoun even say it to Alex at one point? He said, "Don't you want to get back and plan a march or something?"
And that weird question about the common market as well. He just springs on
Yeah.
it. And what do you think? What's the benefits of going into the common market? What? But having said that, I think there is a lot of this that is applicable still today. I mean, Grenfell is a prime example.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wanted to mention a friend of mine who passed away last year. In the mid-'80s, I was playing in a band called the Surfadelics. We played the garage circuit around London mostly, but a few other places. Barry was our guitar player. And he worked in the underground. Well, I say his day job, it was his night job, because he was like those guys you see in the film. He was on one of the night crews that used to go down and clean the stations and clean between the stations.
Right. Yeah.
So first off, can we double check that the rail is switched off, please? That was the first thing, because there were accidents.
Ooh.
And he used to talk about places that even the old hands wouldn't go into.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine, right? You know,
I bet it was.
scary enough just in your normal bits. But he said, yeah, there's doors that no one will open and that kind of thing. And I bumped into him once. I think I must have been going to work like 8 o'clock in the morning, and he was coming back. And he looked, you know, those old photos, the coal miners.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what he looked like. So the work was just very, very dirty, covered in shit, you know. And it gets a bit grim because one of the tasks that they had to do was there was something called suicide pits.
Yeah.
So on the line, just as you come out of the station, there's a pit. If someone jumps, which people unfortunately do, the body or what's left of it goes into the pit rather than being dragged along all the way to Tottenham Court Road. I mean, someone's got to clear that up. So a very grim. And as I say, he passed away last year from, lung disease, basically, at the age of 62, something like that.
God.
63. So I don't like the word underclass really, but those people are still there doing all the shitty jobs and still paying the price for it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And it is underground, whether they're working underground or whether they're working, you know, in the back of a shop somewhere or whatever it is.
Yeah,
it's an underground thing. So yes, an interesting film and one that I think still has some sort of resonance today in that respect.
Yes, yeah. I was very impressed by how well it held up. Actually, it's not dated as much as a lot of the films of the time, but I think because it kept it kind of grounded in reality. Because a lot of them problems are still there, right? You just scratch the surface and there's still shit like that going on.
Yeah, I think you're right. And again, if it was remade today, the scenery would change a little bit.
Yeah.
I think, as I say, London looks nicer now, at least on the surface. But you've still got people travelling to start their job at 1 o'clock in the morning or coming back at 7 o'clock in the morning. You know, they're doing cleaning stuff or whatever. There's that whole world goes on, especially somewhere like London. All the shiny stuff up the top relies on all those people underneath, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's Deathline. Again, I think both of us, that's possibly a top 10 film.
Yeah.
You know, or certainly a high ranking film on many levels. As we say, Guillermo del Toro is a fan. And there's a friend of the show who's a big fan as well. So I think it's fitting that we end with this quote from Ramsey Campbell. This is in a review from the Penguin Encyclopedia of Horror and the Supernatural. Deathline, an unusually bleak and harrowing horror film. Very little in the film offers the audience any relief from the plight of the man. The violence would be intolerable if it were not for the tragic dimensions of the film, but Hugh Armstrong's performance is one of the greatest and most moving in horror films.
There you go. Yeah, I kind of have to agree. He brings a lot of pathos to the role, doesn't he? You know?
Absolutely. There we go. Let us know what you think, dear listener. Let us know if you've got any scary underground stories. There's a whole raft of YouTube things on the haunted underground and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of ghost stories. I had a friend who was into urbex, urban exploring.
Oh, yeah.
They went down into some of those places. They normally did old houses and that sort of thing, but they got a tip off about an entrance so you could get down.
Oh, nice.
So they turned up with the best camouflage ever, high-vis jackets and some cones and a little fence, put them around the entrance and went in.
Yeah.
And I don't think you found anything particularly interesting, but just doing it is the thrill.
That reminds me of another film that actually has some parallels, even though it's actually, I'd say, more of a cosmic horror film. Found footage movie, As Above, So Below, which is set in the Paris catacombs.
Ah, nice.
Bloody good film, that. I really enjoyed that. I would say it's one of the best found footage movies. It's up there with Borderland.
Yeah, the Paris catacombs. There's a great setting as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. Time for us to leave the Innsmouth Picture Palace and venture out into the bright sunlight, blinking like moles. What are we looking at next time, sir, on our next visit?
Next time, we're going to be delving into one of my favourite short stories of weird fiction. We're going to be looking at William Hope Hodgson's The Voice in the Night.
Cracking stuff. Mushroom Man.
Indeed. Yes.
And you know what I'm going to say?
I know. Go. Just do it. Get it over with.
He's such a fun guy to be with.
Yeah, go.
That's probably the oldest Lovecraftian joke around, isn't it, that one?
Yeah. Yes, and I'll also touch on the, I think it was the 60s, a film made in Mexico based on the story.
Oh, brilliant. Excellent. Looking forward to that. So all that remains is to thank you for listening today, folks. A big thanks to all our patrons, and we'd like to say hello and welcome to Norman, our latest patron. Of course, when you sign up, you get free entry to the ILF. You get your quarterly copy of Innsmouth News and various other bits and pieces. So do check out our Patreon page. We appreciate your support. Okay, that's it for this time. Thanks for joining us. It's goodbye from me, Rob Poynton.
And it's goodbye from me, Tim Mendes.